later on another date, he calls back to some of that stuff that you shared. He references things that you mentioned. He shows that he's invested and he's paying attention, because when you really care about anything, you ask good questions and you care about the answer, and that information kind of gets baked in. You don't forget about it, and then you use it in the future. If he's showing that ability, he's not doing it by accident. Like, it's showing that he's really attractive.
All right, Garrett, today's podcast, we are going to be talking about 7 secret signs that he is extremely attracted to you. Now, we've been coaching women on how to find love for over a decade, and there is one question that I know invariably comes up with every client at some point throughout their coaching practice, coaching time with us, and that is, does he like me and is he attracted to me? Right, Gary? We get that all the time. Like, they're spending time with the guy and they like him and they're like, but wait a minute, I don't know. I mean, there's certain signs that maybe he's not that into me. And so that's a lot of what it is that we're talking about with our clients, and we're going to be getting into today. It's a fun one.
It's the classic, does he like me? But like, does he like me? Like, really actually like me? Is he just interested? Is he just kind of passing the time? Or is he extremely attracted? And let's be honest, early on in the dating process, you're dating a couple people, you're talking to a couple people, he probably is too. And the other thing our clients are wondering is, like, of all the people he might be talking to now, am I his favorite? Am I the one he really likes? Or am I the one that's just kind of he's spending time with and just trying to figure out, like, does he like me?
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, our clients are extremely busy. I mean, I just got off a session with one of our really high-end clients. I mean, the one thing she talks about is how time to her is so precious. She doesn't want to waste time. And the big thing is, I think less than just wasting time, our clients don't want to waste their emotional energy investing in a guy who isn't really invested in them. Like, I think people, when they say they don't want to waste time, they're mostly like, I don't want to get hurt. That's what I always read it as, right?
And you don't want to fall for somebody who's not interested in you, right? You don't want to put yourself out there only to get your heart trampled on, right? Yeah. And so that's really what it boils down to. At any age, at any time, when it comes to relationships, you don't want to get rejected. And so the easiest way to figure out if a guy likes you is you could just come right out and ask him. You're like, kind sir, do you fancy me? Like, do you like me? Right? Like,
please don't do that.
Yeah, hello, kind sir.
Hello, please, do you like me with some tea?
Would you fancy a spot of tea with me?
Oh my God, I did that to a girl. Her name was Fallon in middle school. And that was my first degree of heartbreak, was going. Actually, I think what I said to her as a starting point was, you have nice nails. Ooh. And then, so I started with a compliment. So I had a little bit of game. That's a middle school game.
That's a middle school game. Yes. Strong middle school game.
Yeah. And then I think I was like, so do you like me? And she's just like, yeah, you're okay. Yeah. Well, that didn't go the way that I wanted. And then I needed 10 years of therapy to get past it. No, I'm just kidding. But
yeah, and so, you can't just come right out and ask. The other thing is, the guys aren't just going to come right out and tell you either. Like, he's not going to say, I'm so extremely attracted to you. Oh, yeah. And fun fact, if he does, that's a bad sign anyway, right? That's a very love bombing thing to say early on. And so it makes it really hard and confusing, because the thing you want to figure out, he's not going to tell you. You can't ask him. So you really do, in this case, kind of have to read between the lines a little bit, look for those subtle signs. And, this is fundamentally what makes dating so confusing and frustrating.
Definitely. So let's jump into a first general principle, because we want to start with principles before we get into the signs. And this is very, very important when we are getting out there, when we're starting to talk to new people, we're starting to go on some dates, trying to figure out, are they kind of relationship material? Are they my equal? Are they on my level? And we want to look at his video versus his audio. So there's an old saying, actions speak much louder than words, and it's very true. And we talk a lot about the difference between audio versus video. Audio are the words that he's saying, chirp, 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 chirp. Oh, you're so great. I'm so attracted to you. Oh my God. Versus his actions. what is he really doing to show you? And it has to come from inside. Like, what is he really wanting to do? Is he the type of guy who goes out of his way when you're sick to bring you chicken soup and drop it off at your door, even though he knows he's not going to see you? Now, that's a good video. Words are just like, oh, honey, I hope you feel much better, yada, 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 and just trying to sweet talk you every single step of the way. So we want to always be looking for the video matching the audio, or really just the video in general.
Right. Because every guy, especially guys who are trying to be a little bit shady, manipulative, they're really good at words. Like
Oh, yeah.
words are their thing. And so it's really hard to go entirely on words. But people who are genuine and authentic, their video tells you everything you need to know, right? It's the behavior that really shows through. And so one of the things to realize about behavior when you're focused on behavior, a little sort of psychological insight is if a guy really cares what you think, his behavior is going to be a little different than normal, right? So he might be, a little shy, even though in other contexts he's really confident. A smooth guy might feel a little awkward or off balance. And this is why, sometimes those first date behaviors aren't as revealing as you think they are.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, if you can take the most successful guy on the planet who can speak in front of 3,000 people, but if he goes on a first date with a girl that he really likes, oh my God, is he going to clam up?
Yep.
It's just, I went through that. I mean, for me personally, I was speaking across the country. I probably spoke to over 100,000 people over a year period, like all about dating and relationships and how to be social. But let me tell you, when I went on my first date with Jess, I was not that guy. I was nervous. I was I was at a loss of words. I said a number of things. I wish I could put my foot in my mouth and just be like, Adam, why did you say that? And I'm like, dude, you're supposed to be the guy who knows this stuff. And oh my God, was I not. So really, really helpful kind of caveat, Gary. I love that.
Yeah, and just you look out for just like little subtle things like fidgeting, being a little nervous, and sometimes women. And I'm pointing this out because sometimes women perceive that as like, oh gosh, this guy,
Right.
like he's not confident, he doesn't know what he's doing. But it's like this can be a very good sign if this typically confident, all capable guy is just a little bit off on a first date because it means guys overthink things too. And I think sometimes women don't realize that, but like guys get in their head and he's thinking all the time, does she like me? Am I saying the right thing? Oh gosh, you shouldn't have just said that. Right. And it's like, it makes him just a little bit on edge.
I feel like I have just a unique perspective on this, having coached both men and women. And the one unique perspective I can really bring to the table is that both men and women, they both think that the other sex has it all figured out. Like, guys are like, oh my God, women know exactly how to date. They know, what it is that they want, what is it they don't want. They're really confident on dates, yada, yada, yada. I'm a disaster. Then I went over, started working with women, and they were like, guys got it all figured out. Guys know what they're doing. I'm a complete disaster. And I'm like, no one has it figured out. Everyone is a wreck when it comes to a first date. That is normal and that is okay.
Yeah. Everyone's a beautiful disaster. Right. And it's just part of it is recognizing that and realize and just being okay with it. Like, why the heck not?
Yeah, exactly. So let's go into the 7 signs that you can really look for that indicate extreme attraction. Gary, you want to kick us off with the first?
Sure. So I think number one, right? You're out on your first meetup or your first date. I think a way to tell that a guy's really into you, extreme attraction, is he puts his phone away. Like his phone is just not part of your conversation. It's not even face down on the table. It's away. And not only is his phone away, but he's making really good eye contact. He's not scanning the room, looking past you, looking over you, fumbling at things down. Like he's actually intently looking into your eyes. He's locked in. It's almost like he's mesmerized and not in like a creepy, like awkward stare kind of way, but just like, I don't know. Like I think guys, when they're extremely attracted, they look at a woman in a way that looks like they're seeing something for the first time. It's like this mesmerized captive. It's like, oh my gosh, where have you been my whole life? Like there's just a certain way to look.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be about your physical beauty necessarily. It could be
Right?
after you say something insightful or you have like a really deep connection point, you have something really great in common, and he just looks at you with like this mesmerized curiosity where he's thinking, where in the world, what planet did you come from? I want to go to that planet because you are incredible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just absolutely transfixed. And I think, it's about eye contact, but I also think this is a time where like appropriate non-creepy touching, like, when like you're really involved in a conversation, you are talking, you're enthralled, you're like, you lightly touch. I don't know. It's just everything just kind of, he's fully 100% completely present. And that's really a key sign of extreme attraction.
Just a side note on on looking at your phone when you're on a date. Bill Maher, I'm reading his new book he just came out with, and it's really, really funny, by the way. Shameless. I mean, there's no plug here. I'm just reading. It's a great book. And he mentions like he says looking at your phone when you're on a dinner date or out to dinner with someone is kind of like reading a magazine while someone's talking. Like, just imagine that for a second. If someone was sitting there, you're telling them a story and they're just reading a magazine, like, oh yeah, tell me more, tell me more. That's like, it just like for some reason really stuck with me because there's nothing I hate more than when someone asks me a question or is just trying to engage in conversation, then they're on Instagram and scrolling. It's just like, are you insane? How are you really doing this right now?
Right. Yeah, no, it's really funny if you start taking non-technology versions of technological behavior, you start realizing just how ridiculous certain things are.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
in the middle of a conversation, let me read this other thing while you're talking because this might be more important than whatever you're saying is essentially what that is.
Yeah, it's like become normalized to look at your phone, but if it was a magazine, that would be absolutely bonkers. So, it's pretty rare I like laugh out loud when I read a book, but I definitely was at that point. The second sign that he's extremely attracted to you is that you get what we call the deluxe dates. And let's be real here. If you're just in the early phases of going out with this guy, it's only been a couple dates, he might be going exploring other women at the same time. He might be going on dates with other women, as should you be. But with that said, if he is taking you out on dates, he wants to be spending time with you alone and he wants it to be really good and really memorable. And the thing is, he doesn't want to do the exact same thing that he does with everyone. And the fact that the date he takes you on is a deluxe date really shows a lot. So, what exactly is a deluxe date? I would say a few things. One would be prime real estate time, baby, which is like a Saturday night, a Friday night. If he's taking you out on a Tuesday at 5 o'clock for happy hour after work, come on. Where we put our time is where we're investing our energy, and it's a pretty clear, lack of investment. That's obviously barring like certain life circumstances where maybe he's got kids on the weekends. You get the point. Generally speaking, though, if you're not getting that prime real estate, that's a not a great sign. If you are getting the prime real estate, that's a good one. The other one is just big blocks in his calendar. Dedicate If he's dedicating more time towards you and wanting to spend more time, that's obviously an incredible sign that he's interested. That is a deluxe date. Maybe it's an activity that you do before the date. Maybe you go to like a comedy show, then you go out for dinner. All of these just shows like, hey, I want to actually make this extra special. I want to do something with you. I want to spend that extra time. I want to get to know you. And yeah, I just think in general, it's just like those extra special things that you can do. Maybe it might be a little bit more creative, might be a little bit more expensive. Maybe it's a concert or an event. If he doesn't have a lot of money and you're interested with him, at least he can still get creative. A great date might just be a picnic at the park with your favorite like boxed wine and like the cheese, even if it's like Cabot's cheese. It doesn't have to be the fancy cheese. Being thoughtful, all of these things I would put under a deluxe date. I don't know, Gary, am I missing any? What do you think?
No, I think that's good. I think it's anytime a guy's putting in a little extra planning, right? He's putting a little extra emotional time, energy, thought, effort, anything that signifies that he has more invested, I think is really important. I think the one other kind of deluxe date is anything where he's specifically making an effort to spend time to get to know you, like a highly intimate, something where it's one on one, where it's really just about talking and getting to know you. I think, we talk about this in the program that one of the old standby dates is going to the movies. And it's really one of the worst dates ever because you get to spend time sitting next to somebody, but you don't get any information about them. That's the opposite of a deluxe date, right? A deluxe date would be, let's go for a long walk, right, around a lake and really spend time getting to know each other, right?
Also,
Investment
like,
of time.
who goes to the movie theater anymore? Really? Like if he, I agree that is a very boring date, but if he is the type of guy who's taking you to the movie theater, like, come on, dude, there's so many better experiences to go on than going to a movie these days.
Right. Yeah. I mean, someone's taking you to a movie. That's an arbitrary date. It's a token date. It's not a deluxe date.
That's not a deluxe date. Oh my
All
gosh.
right. So the third sign I think that shows that a guy is extremely attracted to you is he's curious. So he asks you a lot of questions and he really wants to dig into your past and who you are as a person and your likes and your dislikes. He really is trying to get to know you and he remembers what you say. Right? So every once in a while guys kind of are on to this idea like, oh, we have to ask a lot of questions. We have to get that's good, right? But they're not always so good at actually following through with the listening part. But a
What'd
guy
you say,
who's
Gary?
what, excuse me,
Yeah, excuse me, I wasn't paying attention. Sorry,
you
that's not my
never
fault.
listen to me anymore.
I'm sorry, Gary. You're just so boring. I'm just kidding. You're the
No
best.
deluxe dates for you, pal. No.
Oh.
You want to go to the movies? You want to go to the movies alone? Okay. So
Oh,
I
that's
think the
sad.
key is he's asking good questions, but then later in the conversation, or even better, later in a text or later on another date, he calls back to some of that stuff that you shared. He references things that you mentioned. He shows that he's invested and he's paying attention because when you really care about anything, you ask good questions and you care about the answer, and that information kind of gets baked in. You don't forget about it and then you use it in the future. If he's showing that ability, he's not doing it by accident. Like it's showing that he's really attractive.
Yeah, I mean, what is attraction? It's an emotional response. And memories typically are strengthened by an emotional response. So if he is engaged and he's feeling something towards you, especially as you're talking about something, and he's like, wow, that was pretty impactful for me. I feel really connected to you. He'll remember it. Whereas if the conversation is not connecting, he's really not that into it, or you're not that into it, he's just not going to remember. I mean, I personally, as I get older, it's even worse for me. If someone's saying something that I'm not emotionally connected to or really that interested in, like I can't even remember it. It's crazy. Like I don't remember what happened yesterday. If the conversation happens and it's such like a ridiculous thing to say out loud, and some people might hate me for it, but like I just can't do it. Like I can't go to a dinner party with my wife and talk to some guy in the corner if he's talking about being an accountant,
I just
playing
imagine you at
golf.
a dinner party talking to an accountant. He starts talking about accounting
Yes.
and you whip out a magazine and you're like, hey,
I'm telling you, like my brain, I don't know if anyone else experiences this, but like my brain just automatically starts to go, it's the monkey brain, just goes into a complete, I'll be thinking about like kite surfing and like Hawaii. I'll be in a different planet as this guy's telling me about debits and credits with like accounting. It just doesn't work for me. And I feel like I used to be better at it, but now my dad does this too. So I feel like I know where I'm heading when I'm 85. My dad's 85. Sometimes he'll just be talking and his brain is, you could tell he's like, Dad, you're not paying attention at all. But, anyways, side note. Point is, if he's doing that to you, he's not that attracted to you. So, oh my gosh.
apologies, by the way, to any accountants listening. It's fascinating work.
I feel like we don't get any accountants anymore because I shit all over them like all the time. It's the one profession, and sorry to my accountant, Doug, you're the man, but and he would agree, like it's just a very boring profession. I'm sorry to tell you. So no apology. That was my non-apology to to accountants. All right, let's moving on from this before I get canceled by the Accountant Society, the CPA Association of America. Number four is that he really puts you first. He's the type of person like he comes to you or he's willing to make the longer drive. And this is especially true if you're going on a meetup, or a first date or a second date with a guy. Like, I want this guy driving to you. We have clients all the time who are like, yeah, I'm talking to this guy and he is outside of what we generally recommend, which is within 30 minutes to 60 minutes max of your geography. They'll be like, yeah, he is outside of that. And I'll say, well, it sounds like you're going to do it and see this guy. So if you are, this dude better be making that investment to come to you. And if he's not, like, you are not getting your beautiful behind in a car and driving to this guy. I'm sorry to tell you, it's not happening for a while. I want this guy to be making that investment in you. And if he does come to you and he's willing to make that investment, okay. Well, that definitely shows a pretty major amount of interest that he is attracted to you. And he also is willing to adjust his schedule. He's willing to be more flexible, like dates and times that suit you even more than it might suit him. Let's say you have family obligations on the weekends and you can only make plans for a Thursday evening, and that doesn't really work well for him, but he's willing to do that. Or he'll just go to places that might be more fun for you than it might be for him. If he's the type of guy who only wants to take you to the sporty dive bar because that's what he likes to play Keno nothing against people who play Keno. It's actually really fun to play. Is Keno everywhere, by the way, or is that just a Massachusetts thing?
It's several places. It's not in New Jersey, as far as I know.
Okay, so Keno is that little thing that you can gamble on at bars. It's really fun in Massachusetts. But my point is, if he's only taking you to those places, whereas you're more of the type of woman who likes to go to nice concerts or plays or see classical music, if he's really attracted to you, he's willing to go to those places because you enjoy it. And he wants to make you happy and he wants to see you happy. I think that's really important. So,
yeah, just the other night, actually on a mastermind, we always do this thing on a mastermind where, we talk about different topics. And one of the things we do is we share the wins that the women had that week. And one of our clients was telling us how she had just gone on this date to a lilac festival. Okay. I don't know what that is, but I can guarantee you that wasn't his choice.
No.
That wasn't his first choice of something. He's like, what I want to do is go to a lilac festival and bring you. It's more like that's a perfect example of him putting her first, thinking about what she wants, she was lit up, like delighted by the fact that she got to go to this thing. And it's like, that's a guy putting somebody else first. The one other kind of caveat I would add to the driving thing is when we say him coming to you, it doesn't mean to your front door. It doesn't mean necessarily to pick you up. It could just be your towns are a half an hour apart. He comes to your town. You meet him there in your town.
Yes. Good caveat there. That's really important.
And so another one, number 5 here for, what indicates extreme attraction. When you're dealing with guys, who likes to be right? Men, everybody, but especially men. And so if a guy is really attracted to you, he's going to be more willing to admit that he's wrong, right? It's a status. It's being right is about status and power and things like that. And so there are guys who are just not going to be willing to admit when they're wrong. And so if a guy's willing to show that bit of humility, what we call it in nerd speak or psychology is intellectual humility. It's an ability to show that, there's different ways of looking at things. It shows a little bit of vulnerability on his behalf. And a guy's not going to be willing to show vulnerability to someone he doesn't really like.
Yeah. Well, Gary, that's how you know that I'm extremely attracted to you, is because before this podcast began, I made a mistake and I told you I was wrong. Do you forgive me? I am attracted to you, Gary, because I'm trying to get on Gary's good side right now because he's a little mad at me for a little mistake going into this podcast. It's completely on my bad. So
you've never been hotter. You've never been hotter. Apology Adam is the hottest Adam.
No, you're the hot one. Yeah, I'm attracted to you. You can't flip this onto me.
No.
This is what happens when two straight guys talk about dating for too long on a podcast. Things get weird after a while, but hey, that's what we're here for. It's a show. It's a show for all you ladies.
I can be vulnerable. It's fine.
Number 6, moving on. All right. You get the scoop, and that is he's going to tell you things that he doesn't tell other people. Like he might look in your eyes and say, hey, I want to tell you something. Honestly, I haven't talked about this in like 5 years, but I just really want to share this with you. And he shares something deep and vulnerable. And with that, here's the thing, with that style, there is a greater chance that he is being manipulative. So instead, we want to really look for times that he shares things and then afterwards says, wow, I don't typically share that. I don't typically do that. And what this shows is that he feels really safe around you, as well as he just has that really strong emotional attraction. Like the cornerstone of any healthy connection is trust. And if he feels like he can really open up with you and share with you something that he doesn't tell a lot of people, clearly he doesn't tell a lot of people because it's something that maybe he's not proud of or something that doesn't, he's nervous to talk about. Wow, that shows a lot about his investment and how much he cares about you.
Yeah, and I do think, that first example where he says, I don't normally tell people this, and then he tells you something that can be completely genuine and authentic. It
Yeah.
absolutely can be. I do, though, think that caveat you shared with that, though, is important, is that is also a way that the manipulative guys can be manipulative. So, that one's a little bit more, it's like take that with a grain of salt, so to speak. The other one, it's like they share things, and you like sometimes that's like the most authentic way of sharing and being who you are is you just start talking. It's like, oh my gosh, wow, I don't really talk this much. I don't, it's like people catch themselves being atypical, and that suggests just a general sense of safety and security, which again is only something guys are going to be willing to do if they have extreme attraction.
Yeah. Yeah. I just think like date guys have fears about opening up just as women do, maybe not to the same extent. And there have been many times, and I think this is really hard for a lot of women to internalize, right? Is that men, when we are dating, sometimes we will open up and be vulnerable the way that a woman wants, and they won't like it. And they won't like what they hear, and they won't like that side of them. And guess what happens to that guy? He doesn't want to do that again. He creates just the hard shell that you might have when you're dating. And so a lot of what we try to do on the show is really try and bridge that gap between men and women and realize that we're not as far apart as you might think. And guys have things about them that they are nervous to share, just like you do. And when a guy is finally able to share something like that with you and you accept it and you accept him and you receive him, that's where like the genuine connection really comes from. And so I think just having that level of empathy throughout dating really may shift the way it is that you might think when a guy opens up with you.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's all about understanding, and it's all about perspective taking and trying to really understand where everybody's coming from. And I think the better you are at understanding where guys are coming from, the more successful you're going to be at dating, for sure.
Yeah. Amen.
So all right, the last one, number seven reason why that indicates a guy's highly attracted to you. I gotta admit, I kind of hate this one. I put it in here, but I kind of hate it. Um, but I had to put it in because it's also, as much as I kind of hate it, it's also pretty true. Which is the number 7 sign is he's a little jealous, right?
Mm.
And so he wants to know if you're seeing other people. He wants to know what other guys are in the mix. He wants to kind of know where he is in your priority list. He's a little protective. He's a little mindful of the competition out there, because if he's a little mindful, and here's the thing that's good about it. The research shows jealousy is an emotion that we have when we feel that we could potentially lose something we care about. So if a guy is able to be a little jealous, it is a sign that you're something he cares about. And so that competition where he's at in the priority list, he's worried about losing something of value to him. And so that's where a little bit of jealousy is a sign of emotional attraction. And I have to really emphasize here, really, 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 really emphasize little jealous, right? He can only be a little bit jealous, because excessive jealousy is a sign of insecurity and all kinds of jealousy is not a sign of love, right? But a little jealous is okay.
A healthy little dose of jealousy, not so bad. If you've gone out with this guy 5 times, let's just say, let's create an example.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you've gone out with a guy 5 times, and then you're going out with your girlfriends on a Saturday night, and he's not invited, and he asks you, who are you going with? Because you can tell he's kind of curious. He wants to know if there's going to be other guys there. That would be, I would say, a healthy amount of jealousy. He's curious, he wants to know, but he's not like unnecessarily pushing it and things like that. An unhealthy dose of jealousy would be, you are not going out without me. I need to know exactly where you are. Share your location, and I'm showing up if it's past 11 o'clock. clearly an unhealthy dose. Now, obviously, it's a spectrum, but I think taking this to heart and realizing when a guy is just being like protective and doesn't want to lose you versus being a controlling, manipulative narcissist who only cares about himself, there's a pretty big difference there. So,
Yeah, and like so many things when it comes to dating, relationships, life, and psychology, it's all about nuance, right? It's what is actually going, because you look at the other side where you're with a guy who doesn't care at all who else you're seeing or who else you're going out with, like you're going to hate that too. Right.
yeah.
And so, there is, like, you really have, and that's what I like about what we do is like, it's all about seeing things from multiple perspectives. Because when you see things from multiple perspectives, you're going to understand them better and it's going to put you in a better position to be more successful.
Amen. And I think I just want to end this with a cautionary tale to all of you who are getting out there and dating and constantly wondering, does he like me? Does he not like me? Well, at the end of the day, always assume he's interested in you, right? Just sometimes you can't know. We could do these signs all day long. I've been doing it for years. Gary's been doing it for years. We try and decode the male mind, yada, yada, yada. But it really depends on the situation, what's going on. The only thing that we can control is you and your mindset. And so I call it the AAA effect. If he's asking you out, he likes you, he's into you, act as if. And you'll know if he's not that interested in you because he's going to stop pursuing you. And so there's something very unhealthy about just constantly, no, like it's good to listen to podcasts like this and like learn new information on that, but to constantly be wondering day in, day out, be talking to your hairstylist, your mother, your best friends, your dating coach, everyone about, does this guy like me? Oh my God. Easiest way to insanity is by constantly asking yourself this question. So you now have more information than 99.9% of people on the planet right now just by listening to this. Go get out there, go attract the guy, and if he's not that into you, say next, move on and find a man who is extremely attracted to you. Thank you, Gary. That was fun.
Thanks, Adam.